It was supposed to be empty. That was the one thing I was sure of. Everyone had moved outside for the toast. I remember the sound of the sliding glass door shutting behind the last group. Someone laughing too loud about something that wasn't funny. That hollow kind of laughter people use when they're drunk enough to say what they don't mean. I only went back upstairs because I thought I left my phone charging behind the desk. Not my desk. Not my house. Not even someone I particularly liked. But I was trying. I was trying so hard to be the good one that night. Polite. Present. Smiling even when I didn't understand the joke. Laughing when I was the joke. And yet, there was light under the door. A pale, trembling glow like a flickering candle. Only no one had candles in that house. Just dimmers and minimalist lamps, and that ugly chrome sculpture that looked like it wanted to poke someone in the eye. I should have left it alone. That's what most people would do. Walk away. Respect privacy. Trust. But trust gets weird when the air smells like someone else's cologne, and the only thing you can hear is the rustle of fabric and the tiniest, strangest laugh, hers. It wasn't the laugh that bothered me. It was the silence that came after. Like someone had hit pause. I turned the knob. It was locked. Of course it was locked. Down the hallway, the rest of the house buzzed. Someone dropped a glass. Someone cursed. The world kept moving like nothing was wrong. But I stood there staring at that doorknob like it was going to explain everything if I stared long enough. That's when the voice spoke from inside. A man's voice. Low. Calm. Too calm. He said, "Don't worry. He won't come back." My skin went cold. Because I hadn't told anyone I was coming back. I never said a word. And suddenly, I couldn't remember if I actually left my phone upstairs at all. I stood frozen outside that door, as if the wood itself had suddenly thickened, turned heavier, grown ears. That sentence didn't just rattle me. It twisted inside my chest like a fishhook. The voice hadn't shouted. It wasn't panicked or even hushed. It was casual, intentional, like he wanted someone to hear it. Me. The carpet beneath my shoes felt uneven, like the floor had shifted without moving. I took a small step back, suddenly hyper-aware of my own heartbeat, the way it pounded against my ribs like it was trying to warn me. He won't come back. Had they seen me return? Had she texted him? Was this a trap for me? A ridiculous thought. But paranoia doesn't wear a wristwatch. It shows up fast, dressed in logic that feels just rational enough to sink into your bones. I looked back down the hallway toward the staircase. No one was there. I could still hear laughter bleeding through the windows from the patio below. Someone popped open a bottle. Someone else hooped. The world was normal out there. But not here. Not behind that door. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. Not a single breath, creak, or whisper. Just sterile silence. For a moment, I convinced myself maybe I misheard. That maybe the voice came from the TV in another room, or someone had taken a phone call on speaker. But the second I turned to leave, something clicked behind the door. A soft snick, like the sound of a cabinet latch unhooking. I turned back so fast I nearly lost my balance. And then I saw it. The shadow. Someone moved just behind the frosted glass panel built into the office door. A silhouette, tall, straight-backed, moving slowly toward the door. My instinct should have been to bolt. Instead, I stepped closer. The doorknob turned, but only a few degrees. It stayed closed. I barely breathed. "Dinah," I called out, stupidly softly. Like I didn't already know the answer. Like saying her name might undo whatever I was hearing. Silence. Then, after a long pause, a soft mechanical hum began behind the door, like a printer or a shredder. Paper moving. Or something pretending to be. I tried the knob again. Still locked. But this time I knocked. Not aggressively. Not passive-aggressively either. Just two firm taps that said, "I know you're in there." Still nothing. I turned, slowly walking away. Not because I was giving up, but because I was testing something. I moved past the hallway mirror, pretending to look at my reflection, just enough to glance back at the door. And that's when I saw it. The door opened an inch, then closed. No one stepped out. No one called my name. No explanation. Just the door, opening, closing, like it was daring me to come back. I didn't go downstairs. I went back to the guest bedroom, where people had dropped their coats and phones earlier. I sat on the bed. I stared at my hands for what felt like hours, but was probably 10 minutes. My heart had stopped racing, but my brain hadn't. It was running full speed now, dragging memories behind it like luggage I didn't know I owned. And that's when I realized something else. My phone wasn't missing. It was in my back pocket the whole time. I hadn't come up to look for it. I came up, because part of me already knew. I sat there on the edge of the guest room bed, staring down at my phone like it was mocking me. It was there the whole time, warm from my pocket. Battery still at 82%. No missed calls. No notifications. Nothing to justify why I came back upstairs. Why I was standing outside that office door like some underfed ghost waiting to be acknowledged. And that was what disturbed me most. The part of me that wanted to catch something. Not prevent it. Not understand it. Just catch it. Like proving it made it real. But then I started wondering, what if it was staged? What if that line, "Don't worry, he won't come back," wasn't just said out loud by accident, but for me? Like a string left hanging out of the fabric, hoping I'd tug on it. I didn't know which thought was worse. That they didn't care if I knew, or that they wanted me to know. Downstairs, the party was beginning to wind down. I could hear the shift in voices, less laughter, more low murmurs, people collecting purses and calling rideshares. I heard someone call Dinah's name. Heard her reply in that tone she uses when she's already 2 glasses in and trying to sound like she isn't. I could picture her perfectly. Hand on hip, one shoe already dangling off, pretending not to check who's texting her. I walked down the hall toward the stairs, but I didn't go down. I stopped at the office again. This time the door was closed, but the light was off. No glow under the frame. No shadow. Whatever had happened in there was over. Wiped clean. It looked ordinary again. I pressed my palm against the door. Cool. Undisturbed. Then I tried the knob. It wasn't locked anymore. For a moment, I thought about opening it. Just to see. But the deeper part of me, the part that was still soft and scared, told me not to. Because if I opened it, whatever I found might not be vague anymore. Might not be deniable. And right now, I was still in the space between suspicion and confirmation, where everything feels possible and nothing is proven. So instead, I left. I walked down the stairs, slow and steady, like I hadn't been moments from unraveling. Dinah was by the patio doors, talking to Miranda, both of them holding half-drunk glasses of white wine, laughing at something I couldn't hear. When she saw me, her face lit up in that way that makes you forget, for just a second, that something feels wrong. "There you are," she said, touching my arm. "I thought you left." I smiled. "Thought I did, too." She raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" "Yeah. Just forgot something." She nodded, didn't press. We said goodbye to a few people, thanked Miranda, who gave me a look I couldn't read if I tried, and made our way to the car. The air outside was sharp and still. I drove in silence. Dinah leaned back in her seat, scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. Like there wasn't a man in a locked office who said something he shouldn't have. Like there weren't paper-thin walls in that house, and a husband with a habit of hearing what he wasn't supposed to. When we got home, she went straight to the shower. I sat on the couch, still wearing my jacket, staring at the blank TV screen. And that's when something strange happened. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. Just a single image. A photo. It was blurry, grainy, taken from above. But I recognized the angle. It was a photo of me, standing outside that office door. I stared at the image on my phone for a long time. Not moving. Not blinking. The longer I looked, the less real it felt. It was clearly me in the photo, my profile lit faintly by the hallway sconces, my hand hovering near the office doorknob, caught mid-hesitation like a deer just realizing it's being watched. But that wasn't what chilled me. It was the angle. The photo had been taken from above, maybe from a security camera, maybe from the top corner of the hallway. But Trent's house wasn't exactly wired with surveillance, at least not anywhere guests could see. Which meant someone took it. Deliberately. Quietly. And they sent it to me without a word. No caption. No threat. Just proof. I kept expecting a second message to follow. Some kind of explanation, warning, joke, anything. But nothing came. Not for the next hour. Not overnight. And in that silence, a kind of madness crept in. I didn't tell Dinah about the message. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, someone secretly photographed me snooping around your boss's office and texted it to me from a ghost number. Do you happen to know why?" It would only make me look unstable. And if she was hiding something, it would make her smarter. But the weight of that photo didn't go away. It pressed on me all weekend. Every time Dinah laughed at her phone or left the room mid-call, I felt it. That creeping sensation that I was on the wrong side of a two-way mirror. That something was being coordinated just out of view, and I was the only one not in on it. By Sunday night, I'd made a decision. I went online and found the blueprints to Trent's house. Took some digging. Turns out he's a minor public figure thanks to some TEDx talk about rewiring your ambition. So there were real estate photos, a floor plan from 5 years ago, even a YouTube tour of the living room back when he hosted some cocktail fundraiser. I studied every corner. I traced where I'd been, where the photo could have been taken from. And that's when something clicked. There was a narrow closet directly across from the office door, just out of frame when you stand in the hallway. A small space, probably used for linens or electronics, but it had a vent grate facing the hall. If someone was in there, quietly, with a phone angled right, they could have snapped that photo easily. No cameras, just patience. I didn't want to believe it, but the thought stuck in my head like a song you can't stop humming. Someone was already there when I arrived. Watching. Waiting. The question was, why? Was I just collateral? Caught by accident? Or was I expected? I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Dinah, listening to her breathe, trying to imagine what her life looked like when I wasn't in the room. I thought about her smile. Not the one she gives me, but the one she gave Trent when we were introduced. Warm, a little nervous, like she was afraid of overstepping but excited to be noticed. I thought about the locked door, the voice, the silence, and the click. By Monday morning, I had already done something I'm not proud of. I borrowed Dinah's work badge from her bag while she was in the shower. She rarely took it to the office anyway. Most of her work was remote these days, but the badge still worked at HQ. She never noticed it was gone. At noon, I drove across the city to her building, parked down the block, and walked in like I belonged there. I shouldn't have been able to, but I did. Her badge buzzed green at the entrance without a problem. Her office was on the 3rd floor. I'd only been there once before, months ago, when I dropped off her lunch after she forgot it. Back then, it looked sterile and boring. Corporate grayish. Now, it looked suspicious. Because when I stepped into the hallway, her door was open. And sitting in her chair, wearing her blazer, her glasses, and typing into her computer, was not Dinah. It was someone else entirely. For a full 5 seconds, I thought I was hallucinating. The woman at the desk didn't even look startled when I walked in. She glanced up, gave me the faintest polite smile, the kind you give to a delivery guy who got the wrong door, and returned to typing like I hadn't just entered a room that, for all intents and purposes, was supposed to belong to my wife. Same desk, same chair, same mug with the stupid quote about Mondays. Same family photo, except it wasn't me in the picture. It was someone else. Similar height, sure. Short hair. But not me. Not even close. The frame was identical to the one on our hallway dresser at home. But this man, he was wearing my life like a mask. I blinked hard and stepped forward, trying to keep my voice casual even though my heart was hammering like a jackrabbit on a pressure plate. Sorry, is Dinah here? I asked, already knowing how bad it sounded. The woman turned toward me, confused but calm. Her ID badge said C. Madsen in tiny font under the company logo. She tilted her head slightly, looking at me like I was trying to sell her toner. Dinah, she repeated. Don't think we have a Dinah on this floor. I paused. I mean, this office, 3rd floor, southwest corner, this was her space. Dinah Ellings. She's been with the firm about a year? The woman frowned thoughtfully, like she was genuinely trying to help me out of a misunderstanding. I've been in this office since February, she said, crossing her arms lightly. I think you might be thinking of the previous temp. I heard she only lasted a couple months. Left sort of abruptly. Abruptly. That word hit like cold water. My wife never mentioned quitting her office. Never said a thing about transitioning to remote full-time, or losing her desk, or someone else replacing her. In fact, just last week she mentioned closing the blinds in the office because of glare. She even complained about the building's bad coffee. These weren't memories from 6 months ago, this was yesterday. I kept my composure and forced a short nod. Right. Sorry. Wrong floor, I guess. I backed out of the office, walked quickly down the hallway, then out to the elevator like I was being chased. But no one was behind me. The only thing following me was a question I couldn't shake. Where has Dinah been going every Monday and Wednesday morning if not to this office? I made it to my car and sat inside with the engine off. I didn't drive home. I didn't even check my phone. I just stared at the dashboard, trying to stitch the pieces together. This wasn't about an affair anymore. Not exactly. This was something else. Something wider. Someone pretending. Multiple people lying. I opened the image again, the hallway photo from the party. I stared at it harder, this time not at myself, but at the details. The lighting. The grain. The edge of the vent in the upper left corner. And then I saw it. A shape in the vent. Not a face, but a sleeve. Blue. With a silver wristwatch poking out. That's all. Just enough to know that someone had been crouched behind that grate. Camera angled downward. Waiting. Waiting for me. And that was when I realized something I hadn't let myself consider until that moment. This wasn't about catching me snooping. It was a message. They wanted me to know I was being watched. They wanted to rattle the cage. But why? Why me? Who even was Dinah? Because the woman I kissed goodbye 3 days ago might have been using the same face, the same voice, and the same laugh, but the cracks were showing. And something real ugly was starting to leak out. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I sat in my car outside a 24-hour diner, parked far enough from the neon that I could disappear into the shadows. I kept telling myself to go in, order coffee, think clearly. But every time I reached for the door handle, I saw her face. Dinah's face. Smiling. Innocent. False. I couldn't stop replaying that moment in the office. The strange woman in her blazer, the photo with the wrong man in the frame, the calmness in her voice when she said she left abruptly. Like Dinah was just some vapor that dissipated after she served her purpose. And what was that purpose? I tried to pull up Dinah's work email from my phone, but her inbox had logged me out. I opened her Find My app, one we rarely used, but it showed her location as unavailable. I checked our shared calendar. Nothing listed. She had scrubbed herself clean. That's when it hit me. This wasn't panic. This wasn't an accident. Dinah had been planning this disconnection for a long time. But she'd made one mistake. She forgot I still knew her tells. I drove home just after 2 a.m., careful to keep the radio off, windows down, thinking better in the cold. Her car was in the driveway. Porch light off. House dark. I stepped inside as quietly as I could, expecting, hoping, to catch her asleep. Maybe in bed. Maybe not. Maybe her phone left unlocked. Maybe something left behind. But she was sitting in the living room, lights low, phone in hand, staring blankly at the television. Except it wasn't even on. "Hey," she said, like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't erased her desk, or her routine, or her reality. I didn't sit down. "Where were you today?" I asked. No build-up, no soft entry. Just straight into it. She blinked. "Work." "What office?" She looked at me like I had just asked her how gravity worked. "What do you mean?" "Same as always." "No, not the same. Someone else is in your office now. Has been since February. They don't even know who you are." There it was. The flicker. Not of guilt, but of something cooler. Calmer. As if she had rehearsed this moment before I ever spoke. "Are you spying on me?" "Don't flip this." "I'm not flipping anything. You're the one stalking my office." I stepped closer. "Then tell me where you were today." "I told you." "Not the excuse. The truth. What are you doing during the hours you pretend to be at that job?" She stood now, slowly, placing her phone on the armrest like a delicate grenade. "I'm not going to defend myself if you've already decided I'm guilty. That's not how this works, Dinah. You don't get to erase your workplace, replace family photos, block your location, and then act wounded when someone notices." She crossed her arms. "Maybe I stopped telling you things because you always jump to the worst conclusion." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how absurdly normal that response was. A classic deflection. Redirecting blame like a pro. She wasn't even flustered. And that's when I knew something for sure. This wasn't her first time. She wasn't improvising. She had scripts. Plans. Exit routes. "You're not denying it," I said quietly. "Denying what?" She said, still composed. "That I've kept things from you?" "Fine. I have. That I've been dishonest about work?" "Sure. But you're not ready for the real reason why." My stomach turned. She took a step forward. "Do you remember last October? The week I told you I was in Denver for that client summit?" "Yeah. I wasn't in Denver." I swallowed. "Then where?" She looked me dead in the eye. "I was at a facility. Private. Non-government. Off record. I can't tell you where, because I signed documentation that." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You expect me to believe this is some espionage thing now? That you're being vague because it's classified? You think I'm lying. Fine. Then tell me this. Why do you think the photo you received that night only showed you?" That stopped me. She continued. "Because it wasn't to scare you. It was to warn you. You stepped into something that wasn't yours to see. And now you're being monitored." I stepped back. She wasn't bluffing. Not in the way liars bluff when they're cornered. She was calm. Too calm. Like she knew exactly how much to say, and how much to leave unsaid to make the confusion stick. I felt the air change. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen when I walked in. There was another phone on the table. Not hers. Mine. But I had it in my jacket pocket. Didn't I? I reached in. Empty. I walked over slowly, picked up the phone on the table. Identical case. Same wallpaper. But when I pressed the screen, it flickered, glitched, then went black. And then I realized something that made the floor seem to tilt beneath me. That wasn't my phone. It was a copy. And this wasn't my wife. It was someone wearing her shape. I didn't touch the copy of the phone again. I just stood there staring at it like it might blink. Every hair on my body felt electric, pulled towards something just outside the reach of logic. This wasn't a moment of suspicion anymore. This wasn't jealousy, or paranoia, or even betrayal. It was vertigo, reality peeling at the corners. A growing sense that the woman in front of me wasn't lying in the traditional sense. She was performing. Controlled. Precise. Her voice, her mannerisms, her pauses, all too measured, like someone was playing Dinah from a script while watching how I reacted. And the worst part was how much she still felt like her. Her scent. Her posture. The way she slightly tilted her head when she was waiting for me to catch up. It was all her, and it wasn't. She moved like my wife, but every move was deliberate, as if nothing was automatic. As if someone else had studied her, memorized her patterns, and put them on like clothes. I sat down without realizing I had done it. My knees just gave. The couch was too soft, like everything else in the room. A room that had once felt like home, but now felt like a stage set after the lights go out. She sat across from me, hands folded on her lap, watching me, but not with concern. Not even with pity. Just quiet interest. "You're not Dinah," I said finally. She didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She just looked down at her hands and said, almost gently, "No, I'm not. But I needed to be." I swallowed the panic rising in my throat. "Why?" "Because you weren't ready for the truth. And you weren't supposed to see what you saw at the house. The vent. The photo. That wasn't for you. It was an error." "An error?" My voice cracked. "So what? This is all just a glitch. You slip into someone's life, pretend to be my wife for what? A month? 2? How long has it been?" She met my eyes again. "Longer than you think." My blood ran cold. "What did you do with her?" She didn't answer immediately. She tilted her head slightly and said, "That depends what you mean by her." I stood. Too fast. My vision blurred, but I didn't care. "I want to talk to her. The real Dinah. Right now. Or so help me. I will go to the police, the press, everyone." "No, you won't. Watch me." "You won't," she said again, softly this time, like a parent explaining something to a frightened child. "Because deep down, you already know they wouldn't believe you. Do you even know the last time she called your name? Not since the night of the party. Not once. She hasn't needed to. Because you've been distracted by the edges, by the noise. And we've been watching." I stared at her in silence. My pulse was thudding in my ears. The room felt too still, too staged. I turned toward the hallway. And that's when I noticed the frame on the wall, the one that used to hold a photo of our anniversary trip to Maine. The photo was still there, but the date on the printed timestamp was wrong. The year was wrong. It said 2021. That trip didn't happen until 2023. I grabbed the frame and looked closer. My smile was wrong. My hair was shorter than it had been that summer. And Dinah's hand, her left hand, didn't have her wedding ring. It was almost our photo, but not quite. I turned back to her, now standing behind the couch, arms at her side. "How long have you been preparing this?" I asked. "A while," she said. "Why me?" She looked genuinely sad for a moment. "Because you were easy. You didn't ask too many questions. You wanted to believe she still loved you, even when she started to vanish. You ignored things." "You mean like the fact that she wasn't showing up to her office?" She nodded. "Among others." I felt my chest tighten. "Where is she?" I asked again, slower this time. Her face twitched. Not emotion, not hesitation, processing. Like she had to access the answer. "She's not gone," she said. "But you don't get to see her. Not yet." I moved toward the door. "I'm not staying here with you." "You can't leave," she said quietly. I froze. "Try, if you want," she added. "But you'll notice the front door doesn't open anymore." I ran. Straight for it. Full speed. Twisted the handle. It didn't move. Deadbolt engaged. But not locked. Disabled. No clicks. No resistance. like it had never been designed to open at all. And then the lights cut out. Every bulb in the house went black in unison, except one, a dim, pulsing light from the hallway. I turned and saw a silhouette standing where the stairs met the kitchen. Not Dinah, not the woman pretending. Something taller, still, waiting. The silhouette didn't move. It just stood there at the far end of the hallway, backlit by the pale pulse of that single light, soft, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I braced myself for the worst. My mind tried to fill in the blanks. Another replica, another version of her, maybe something inhuman entirely. I thought about grabbing something, a lamp, a chair, anything, but my arms felt too heavy, like the air had thickened around me. And then it spoke. Not out loud, but from my pocket. A vibration. My real phone. I'd forgotten I had turned it off in the car hours ago. I pulled it out with shaking hands, the screen blinking to life. One notification. One text. From a contact that had been deleted 6 weeks ago. Dinah. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't make it back. But it also means you found me. My throat closed up. My hands went numb. They tried to scrub me. To replace me. I don't know how much time I have or what version of me you've seen, but if you're reading this, some part of me made it through. And if you follow the light, you'll understand. Please don't be afraid. I've always trusted you to see me clearly. The light in the hallway changed. It wasn't pulsing anymore. Now it glowed steadily, soft and warm, illuminating a door I hadn't noticed before. Not the front door. Not the kitchen. This was between walls, an impossible sliver, like a closet that never used to be there. The woman behind me didn't speak. She didn't move. She didn't try to stop me. Maybe she couldn't anymore. I stepped toward the door. Hand trembling, I reached for the knob. It turned. Easily. Behind it wasn't a room. Not exactly. It was a corridor. Narrow, white, quiet. Filled with faint humming, like distant electricity or ocean waves trapped behind glass. I stepped through, and immediately, I felt her. I can't explain it. It wasn't visual. I didn't hear her name, but I felt her, like when you walk into a room that smells like someone you haven't seen in years, and suddenly your body remembers more than your mind does. Her laugh, her warmth, her weird way of narrating grocery lists. It was all here. The corridor opened into a space that wasn't physical, but real nonetheless. A projection, a memory, a preserved moment, and she was in it. Dinah, the real Dinah. She looked exactly like I remembered, flawed, beautiful, alive, and tired. So tired. She smiled, just slightly. She said, her voice cracking. You made it. I broke. I stepped forward. She reached out. Not a hug, not a kiss, just fingertips brushing mine. It was real enough. I didn't know what they were doing at first, she said softly. They said it was just monitoring, behavior mapping, until they asked me to forget you. She closed her eyes. And I couldn't. I didn't care about the rest. The facility, the tech, the strange people who'd replaced her routines, rewritten our photos, tried to turn her into something simpler. I cared that she remembered, that she fought her way through whatever machine had tried to erase us. We sat there, in that impossible space, for what felt like hours. Talking, rebuilding, laughing again, real laughter. Eventually, the corridor opened back into the hallway. The false version of her, the one in the house, was gone. The lights were normal again. The front door opened on the first try. The sky outside had turned that pre-dawn blue, where the world feels brand new, even if nothing has changed yet. We walked out together, hand in hand, and I knew then, without a doubt, that no matter how deep the deception had gone, no matter how fractured the path had become, I had found the real her, and she had never stopped trying to find me.